Why does it seem like some students are just able to absorb information like sponges, while others are left in their seats wondering why everything seems so confusing? The question is, why do most students seem to never reach their full potential, while others simply seem to always be a step ahead? Today's video, I'm going to point out that a lot of these issues aren't actually due to intelligence, but rather how we're studying. That is, the methods that we're using to absorb information. The secret isn't really a secret at all. It's a method that is very effective and is scientifically proven to improve your retention and have better academic results. Hi, I'm Ruben Rivers. I'm currently a college student, somebody who's interested in learning about the world and learning about how to learn, as well as exploring personal development and other interesting topics. Today, I'm gonna help you learn how to use active recall, which is a method that, since I've begun to apply it, has really allowed me to take a big step forward in my academic career and have straight A's, have results that I never saw before. I never considered myself a very intelligent person, and I realized that academic success isn't necessarily a matter of intelligence, but rather knowing how to apply certain methods that are going to give you good results when applied well. So, the million-dollar question: what is active recall? So active recall is a method where, rather than learning passively, you are going to try to retrieve information from your memory. And this, in turn, ends up strengthening those neural pathways that allow you to access that information in your mind and pull it back out when you need to answer a question on an exam or write an essay. So it's pretty interesting. One famous study by Roediger and Butler showed that students who use active recall versus students who are using more passive techniques such as underlining or summarizing while looking at their notes have much better results. So those who used active recall in the study had 50% or up to 50% better retention and performance during those tests. Now, for those of you who want to dive deeper into this topic, I really recommend the book Make It Stick. It's an excellent book on this topic, and it dives into not only active recall, but also spaced repetition and other complementary methods that take this method to another level, and that I do plan on covering in the future. Step number one, ask yourself questions. So let's say we're learning about the French Revolution, and we've just been presented some sort of lecture on the topic. After class, rather than just putting your notes away, what you're going to do is get a blank piece of paper and write down questions on the French Revolution. When did X battle happen? When did X person get executed? What were the key motives? What were the underlying factors, etc.? And this will allow you to have a deeper understanding. Or another thing that's a little bit more advanced is literally trying to remember all of the notes that you took and copy them down on that blank piece of paper. Can you remember all of the big ideas that you got during the lecture and retrieve them from your memory? And obviously, you're likely not going to remember everything. So then you would go and identify those weaknesses, those pieces of information that you've forgotten, and focus on memorizing those until you can eventually retrieve them from memory without the aid of your notes, and thus block them into your long-term memory. We also have the second method, which is flashcards. This is really popular among language learners. You can use apps like Anki, Quizlet, among others. But essentially the idea is that you have a prompt on one side, or you have a term, and you have to retrieve that definition and see if you got it right. And you turn over the card and you get instant feedback. So that's another way to do things. Now, the third and final method, obviously we do have more ways of doing this. You can have conversations. You can basically try to teach the concept to somebody without looking at the information. But just to simplify things, my final method and my favorite method is mind mapping. Now, a mind map is essentially where you create sort of a tree of ideas. You have the topic in the center. So let's go back to that French Revolution idea. You have the French Revolution, and you have different branches with certain battles and dates, and then you have sub-branches branching off from those branches, and you essentially create this map without looking at your notes. So it's just another way of pulling that information from your mind, without actually looking at any sort of external aid or assistance. So now that you know how to use active recall, I do want to warn you, there are a few mistakes that you can make and that I want you to avoid at all costs. So first and foremost, don't overload yourself. Don't try to memorize everything at once. You really want to focus on identifying the information that is absolutely crucial. We have this principle of 80-20, where often 20% of what you're learning actually ends up giving you 80% of the total results. So the key is to focus on memorizing what is likely going to be needed later on, rather than just memorizing everything. Second, we have this idea of skipping feedback. So you do the active recall, you try to retrieve things from your memory, but then you never actually check to see if you got the answers right. So obviously that would be problematic. Say you're doing your Anki flashcards, you're looking at one side of the card, but you never flip it over to see if you got it right. That sort of defeats the purpose. Even if you feel like you remember the answer and you got it right, I still recommend that you flip over the card just to make sure, and that will allow you to prevent those weaknesses from popping up later on when in reality you realize that yes, you did forget something and that you just thought that you got it right. And finally, we also have the idea of just giving up, because active recall, I'm going to be honest, is quite difficult. It makes your brain sweat. It feels cognitively taxing, and compared to more passive studying methods, it's very uncomfortable. So I recommend that you stick with it, because it was certainly challenging for me at first, but you realize that it does give you much better results and that it's really worth it. So push through that discomfort, and just know, as the book Make It Stick points out, that when you feel that cognitive fatigue setting in, it's really a sign that you are forcing your brain to work and remember the information. So take it as a good sign, essentially, and push through it. Just to wrap things up, essentially active recall is this practice of retrieving things from our memory rather than looking over things passively, with the goal of increasing our retention long term and having a more enriching and impactful learning experience. This technique has really transformed the way that I learn, and I know that it can do the same for you if you apply these principles. And before you go, if you really want to take your studying to the next level and learn more about personal development and other related topics, please subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, give me a like, and give me your feedback so that I can know how to make these videos better and more useful for you. Thank you so much for your time. See ya.